Habit 1 begins with a profound and courageous encounter with the shadow, those hidden unconscious parts of ourselves where fear, pain, and vulnerability reside, often concealed even from our own conscious awareness. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is not an enemy to be fought or a darkness to be banished, but a vital piece of the psyche that holds the keys to wholeness, creativity, and true strength. A woman who sets high standards and demands respect does not deny or suppress her shadow. Instead, she looks unflinchingly into the depths of her inner world, naming the insecurities, doubts, and wounds that once threatened to control her. She refuses to cast these hidden parts onto others, breaking the cycles of projection that cloud perception and poison relationships. This act of honest self-recognition is no easy task. It requires humility, vulnerability, and relentless self-inquiry, but it frees her from the exhausting burden of pretending to be whole without embracing the parts she once feared. By owning her shadow, she transforms what was once a source of shame into a reservoir of wisdom and emotional resilience. This self-knowledge grants her a clarity that sharpens her boundaries and refines her values, allowing her to stand grounded and unshaken amidst life's storms. She no longer seeks validation from outside, for she has integrated her fragmented self into a harmonious whole, standing confidently in her complexity without apology or fear of rejection. This habit of shadow work is a lifelong commitment, a continual dialogue between conscious light and unconscious depth, that demands courage to face uncomfortable truths and patience to heal the wounds that surface. Through this integration, she cultivates a presence that radiates calm authority, drawing respect not through force but through the quiet mastery of self. Her standards arise from deep compassion for herself and others, balanced by a fierce commitment to authenticity. In a world conditioned to avoid discomfort and complexity, her willingness to embrace the full spectrum of her being becomes a radical act of rebellion. She challenges the false narratives that equate strength with perfection and masks vulnerability as weakness. This habit anchors her identity in truth rather than illusion, making her a beacon of stability and grace. The clarity born of shadow ownership unsettles those who mistake control for power, for she embodies a power born of integration, not separation. Her presence becomes magnetic, quietly addictive, a steady force in a world ruled by chaos and fragmentation. She invites others, not by demand or drama, but through the silent example of wholeness, encouraging those around her to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery. In owning her shadow, she claims her rightful place as a woman who not only sets high standards, but lives them with integrity and profound emotional strength. This habit is the foundation on which all other aspects of her respect and power rest, the deep inner work that transforms fear into freedom, fragmentation into unity, and chaos into calm. Habit 1 unfolds in the quiet depths of self-awareness where a woman meets her shadow, the unconscious reservoir of fears, doubts, and hidden parts that Carl Jung taught are essential to the psyche's wholeness rather than its fracture. To acknowledge and own the shadow is to step beyond the illusions of perfection and control, embracing those aspects of herself she once feared or denied. This woman no longer projects her insecurities or unresolved conflicts onto others, breaking the exhausting cycle of blame and misunderstanding that fragments relationships and clouds judgment. Instead, she carries her shadow with grace, integrating its lessons into a coherent sense of self that grants her both emotional strength and profound clarity. The courage it takes to confront the shadow is immense, for it requires honesty with one's wounds, acceptance of imperfection, and a willingness to explore the uncomfortable territories of the unconscious. Yet through this habit, she transforms vulnerability into power, seeing that the shadows she once ran from are the wellspring of her authenticity and resilience. Her self-knowledge dissolves the need for external validation, replacing it with an inner calm that withstands life's storms and a presence that commands respect not through force but through quiet mastery. This habit is not a destination but a lifelong journey, a continuous dialogue between light and darkness within, allowing her to live fully as a whole person, not a fragmented facade. In a world conditioned to fear complexity and avoid discomfort, her embrace of the shadow becomes a radical act of rebellion and a beacon of wisdom, inviting others to seek their own integration. By owning her shadow, she claims a sovereignty that unsettles those who mistake power for control, for her strength flows from acceptance rather than denial, from unity rather than division. This deep inner work shapes her standards and boundaries with clarity and compassion, making them both firm and fair. Her respect arises naturally because it is rooted not in judgment but in profound self-understanding. The shadow she carries is no longer a burden but a source of vitality, illuminating her path with the wisdom of experience and the courage of truth. In this habit lies the foundation of all her growth, the quiet strength that makes her presence magnetic and her poise quietly addictive in a world often ruled by chaos and compromise. Habit 2 is the fierce and tender act of choosing authenticity over approval, a path that Carl Jung described as the essential journey toward individuation, where one sheds the masks and personas crafted to satisfy the world's expectations and instead embraces the raw, often uncomfortable truth of the self beneath. This woman no longer lives to collect the fleeting nods of approval or to fit neatly into the boxes prescribed by society, culture, or history. She has found the courage to stand in her own light, even when it isolates her or invites misunderstanding. To live authentically means to honor the unique contours of her inner landscape, the contradictions, the passions, the doubts, and the deep wells of wisdom that cannot be fully understood or appreciated by others who have not done the same work. She understands that the persona, the social face worn to navigate external reality, is a necessary but limited tool, and she refuses to allow it to become a prison that confines her to someone else's script. By breaking free from the relentless need for validation, she reclaims her sovereignty, refusing to dilute her truth for the comfort of the masses or the fleeting acceptance of peers. This rebellion against conformity is not loud or dramatic but quiet, rooted in a profound inner alignment that radiates a magnetic calm and integrity. It requires relentless honesty, a willingness to face the loneliness that often accompanies divergence, and a trust that the universe honors those who live in their truth. The courage to choose authenticity over approval transforms her relationships, as she no longer seeks to please or perform but to connect on a deeper, more honest level that invites genuine understanding or graceful distance. This habit fosters an emotional independence that makes her immune to the toxic sway of collective opinions or cultural pressures, allowing her to navigate life with clarity and peace. She learns to differentiate between constructive feedback that nourishes growth and the empty noise that distracts from her path. Her refusal to wear masks no longer isolates her but frees her to attract kindred spirits who respect the fullness of her being. In a world conditioned to reward conformity and superficial charm, her authenticity is a quiet revolution, unsettling those who rely on appearances and social approval to define worth. She embodies Jung's teaching that wholeness arises not from fitting in but from integrating all parts of oneself, even those that contradict societal norms. Her life becomes a testament to the power of vulnerability wielded with courage, where truth shines brighter than the fleeting approval of the crowd. This habit is a wellspring of her resilience, allowing her to withstand criticism and rejection without losing her center. It is also a source of deep fulfillment, as she no longer lives as a shadow of expectations but as a vibrant, evolving soul. The calm that emerges from this habit is magnetic, inviting others to lower their own masks and embrace the messy beauty of their authentic selves. This habit nurtures a presence that is both grounded and expansive, a beacon in a world too often dazzled by facades. In choosing authenticity over approval, she writes her own story, unbound by scripts written for her by others, and in doing so, commands a respect that is not demanded but freely given. Her journey reminds us that true power is not in pleasing others, but in honoring the sacred and unique self within. Habit 3 is the profound practice of emotional sovereignty, a state where a woman claims full ownership over her inner landscape, managing her emotions with a steady hand rather than surrendering her peace to the whims of others. Rooted deeply in Carl Jung's understanding of the psyche, this habit reflects the integration of unconscious impulses with conscious awareness, allowing her to navigate the turbulent seas of feeling without capsizing into reactivity or dependency. She recognizes that emotions are not enemies to be controlled, but messengers to be understood, and through this understanding she cultivates a serene authority that commands respect naturally and effortlessly. Emotional sovereignty means she no longer relies on external validation or the shifting moods of those around her to stabilize her sense of self. Instead, she nurtures an internal sanctuary where feelings can be felt fully, processed honestly, and released without judgment or suppression. This sovereignty is born of a deep commitment to self-reflection and shadow work, where the chaotic storms of past wounds and conditioned reactions are met with compassion and transformed into sources of strength. She refuses to be a hostage to impulsive reactions or the drama that often surrounds human interaction, choosing instead to respond from a place of clarity and grounded presence. This practice makes her a pillar in relationships and communities, for she neither drains energy through emotional neediness nor destabilizes others through erratic moods. Instead, her calm becomes a stabilizing force that invites trust and admiration. Jung taught that individuation requires the harmonization of opposing forces within, and emotional sovereignty exemplifies this balance, where vulnerability and strength coexist without contradiction. She is not cold or distant but deeply connected to her feelings, able to hold them without losing herself or losing control. This habit fosters resilience, for she can weather external turbulence without fracturing, maintaining her center even when the world around her is unsteady. Her emotional clarity allows her to discern genuine connection from manipulation or superficiality, setting boundaries that protect her well-being without isolating her from authentic intimacy. In practicing emotional sovereignty, she becomes a living example of Jung's vision of the self as an integrated whole, neither overwhelmed by unconscious impulses nor numbed by denial. This inner mastery is both a gift to herself and to those who cross her path, as it elevates the quality of her relationships and inspires others to seek the same freedom within. Her presence is magnetic not because she demands attention, but because she emanates a calm power that speaks of self-possession and dignity. In a culture that often equates emotional expression with chaos or weakness, her ability to manage her feelings with grace is revolutionary. It disrupts the narrative that dependence is inevitable and shows that true strength lies in self-containment and honest self-regulation. This habit grounds her firmly in the reality of her own experience while allowing space for growth and change, a dynamic equilibrium that nurtures both stability and evolution. Through emotional sovereignty, she lives as an embodied witness to Jung's timeless truth. The path to wholeness winds through the acceptance and transformation of all parts of the self, especially those hidden in the shadows. It is this habit that underpins her capacity to set high standards without compromise, to engage with the world without losing herself, and to command respect not by demanding it but by embodying it fully in every moment. Habit 4 is the essential practice of maintaining boundaries as profound acts of self-love, a discipline that flows naturally from the Jungian principle of honoring the self's integrity and wholeness. This woman understands that boundaries are not walls built from fear or exclusion, but compassionate lines drawn with clarity and respect, delineating where her energy begins and ends, what she will accept and what she will not. She sets these limits not out of rigidity, but from a deep understanding that her psychological and emotional health depend on honoring her needs, values, and truths, allowing her to engage with the world from a place of centeredness rather than depletion. Boundaries serve as protective barriers that preserve her inner sanctuary, shielding her from toxicity, manipulation, and undue demands that threaten to fracture her sense of self. This habit is rooted in Jung's teaching that the self must be defended against forces that seek to reduce it to fragmented pieces or to dissolve it into collective expectations. By maintaining firm yet compassionate boundaries, she asserts her sovereignty without alienation, communicating with quiet authority what is acceptable and what is not, inviting respect through the clarity of her intentions. Her boundaries are alive with empathy, allowing connection without compromise and intimacy without loss of self. She refuses to sacrifice her well-being for approval or acceptance, understanding that true love and respect cannot exist without the mutual honoring of limits. This practice is both an act of courage and tenderness, requiring self-awareness to recognize when boundaries are being tested and the resolve to uphold them gently but unyieldingly. In a culture conditioned to blur lines and demand endless giving, her habit of boundary setting becomes a radical declaration of self-worth, signaling that she is not merely a resource for others' comfort, but a whole person deserving of care and consideration. This habit cultivates a balance where vulnerability is not exploited but honored, where connection does not erode individuality but enriches it. Jung's psychology teaches that integration requires the differentiation of the self from the collective, and boundaries are the lived expression of this differentiation. Through this habit, she preserves the sacred space within where growth, creativity, and authenticity flourish unthreatened. Her boundaries do not isolate her but create a field of safety that nurtures genuine relationships, attracting those who respect her wholeness and repelling those who do not. The clarity and consistency of her boundaries become a language of respect, spoken without words but felt deeply by those around her. This habit also reflects her understanding that self-love is not selfishness, but the foundation of all meaningful love, a prerequisite for giving and receiving in ways that sustain rather than drain. Her respect for herself in boundary setting becomes a mirror for others, encouraging them to reflect on their own limits and the quality of their connections. In practicing this habit, she embodies Jung's vision of a psyche integrated and protected, where the self can stand strong amidst the currents of life, untouched by the erosion of unclear expectations or blurred roles. This strength to maintain boundaries with compassion is a quiet power that permeates her presence, making her an unshakable force of dignity and grace. It is a cornerstone of her ability to set high standards, not just for others but for herself, honoring the sacredness of her own journey and the integrity of her soul. Habit 5 is the sacred embrace of solitude, a practice that Carl Jung revered as the fertile ground where the conscious mind meets the vastness of the unconscious, allowing a woman to recharge, reflect, and emerge renewed with a wisdom that transcends impulse and noise. In solitude, she finds a sanctuary untouched by external demands and distractions, a space where the layers of social conditioning peel away to reveal the raw essence of her being. This quiet refuge becomes the crucible for inner alchemy, where shadows are faced, dreams are heard, and the fragmented pieces of the psyche are woven into a coherent tapestry of self-understanding. Unlike loneliness, which wounds, her solitude is a deliberate choice, a powerful act of self-care and self-respect that fosters clarity and emotional sovereignty. Within this sacred silence, she cultivates a deep connection to the archetypal forces that guide her journey, listening attentively to the subtle whispers of intuition and the symbols that arise from the depths. Jung taught that true creativity and transformation occur not in the cacophony of the external world, but in the stillness where the unconscious reveals its mysteries, and she honors this truth by carving out time to be alone without apology or guilt. Solitude sharpens her discernment, allowing her to make decisions rooted in the fullness of her being rather than reactive impulses or societal pressures. It is in these moments that she cultivates patience with herself and the world, embracing the ebb and flow of growth with grace. This habit strengthens her presence, making her appear calm, grounded, and quietly magnetic. For those who encounter her, sense the depth and authenticity that solitude nurtures. The power she draws from being alone is a subtle force that underlies her resilience, creativity, and emotional balance, enabling her to navigate relationships and challenges with wisdom born of reflection rather than haste. In a culture that often equates busyness with worth, her commitment to solitude is a radical rejection of noise and distraction, an invitation to return to the self as the true source of strength and guidance. This habit reflects Jung's vision of individuation as a journey inward, where the soul must encounter itself in solitude to become whole. She understands that only by stepping away from the collective clamor can she hear the unique call of her own destiny and respond with integrity. Her solitude is not a withdrawal from life, but a deep engagement with it on her own terms, a sacred pause that enriches every aspect of her being and actions. Through this habit, she honors the balance between connection and separation, knowing that true intimacy requires the capacity to stand alone as a complete self. The embrace of solitude becomes a wellspring of her power, imbuing her with a quiet confidence that does not demand attention but naturally commands respect. It is a reminder that within the silence lies a profound dialogue with the unconscious, a space where healing, insight, and transformation unfold beyond the limitations of the conscious mind. Her solitude is a testament to her maturity and self-trust, a living embodiment of Jung's timeless truth that the journey to wholeness requires moments of stillness and inner communion. By embracing solitude, she nurtures a depth that enriches her presence and fuels her capacity to set and uphold high standards with unwavering clarity and compassion. The habit of reflection is the sacred practice of engaging in regular, intentional inner dialogue, a process that allows a woman to commune with the depths of her unconscious and illuminate the shadowed corners of her psyche, deepening her self-awareness and fostering continuous evolution. Guided by the wisdom of Carl Jung, she understands that the unconscious is not a dark abyss to be feared, but a wellspring of insight and transformation accessible through disciplined reflection. Whether through journaling, meditation, or therapy, she creates a consistent space to listen attentively to the symbols, emotions, and subtle messages that arise from within, trusting that these internal conversations are vital to her individuation and wholeness. This dialogue is not a superficial glance at passing thoughts, but a committed, patient exploration of the layers beneath her conscious mind where unresolved conflicts, hidden desires, and archetypal patterns dwell. She does not shy away from discomfort or complexity, but welcomes the sometimes difficult truths that surface, knowing that only through this honesty can she dismantle illusions and embrace her authentic self. This habit of reflection cultivates an ongoing cycle of questioning, understanding, and integration that keeps her in dynamic relationship with her inner world, allowing her to adapt and grow rather than remain stagnant or reactive. Through this practice, she nurtures emotional resilience, sharpens intuition, and gains clarity that informs her choices and boundaries in daily life. Reflection becomes a ritual of self-love and respect, an act of turning inward to replenish and realign, ensuring that her standards remain grounded in truth rather than external pressures or fleeting emotions. Jung taught that the psyche speaks in symbols and stories, and through her inner dialogue she learns to interpret these languages, uncovering insights that guide her path with subtlety and depth. This ongoing conversation with the unconscious softens the edges of rigidity, infusing her strength with compassion and flexibility. It also reveals the interconnectedness of her experiences, showing her patterns that once seemed random or burdensome to be parts of a larger, meaningful whole. Her habit of reflection equips her with the tools to face life's inevitable challenges with equanimity, for she carries within her a wellspring of wisdom and self-knowledge that calms the storms of uncertainty and fear. This habit is not a retreat from the world, but a way of engaging with it more fully and authentically as she integrates the lessons of the unconscious into conscious action. Her presence, therefore, radiates the quiet power of one who has touched the depths of her own being and returned with a clearer vision and a more compassionate heart. It makes her magnetic, not because she demands attention, but because she embodies a calm confidence born from ongoing self-inquiry and growth. In a culture that often prizes speed and external achievement, her commitment to reflection stands as a radical affirmation of the inner journey, reminding us that true transformation arises from patience and deep listening to the self. Through this habit, she continuously renews her alignment with her core values and the unique blueprint of her soul, allowing her to set and uphold high standards with authenticity and grace. The habit of reflection is the living dialogue that sustains her evolution, the sacred conversation through which she becomes ever more whole, integrated, and free. The habit of rejecting superficiality emerges as a natural consequence of deep inner work, a refusal to settle for the hollow echoes of shallow relationships or meaningless interactions that fail to honor the full complexity of her being, a stance deeply rooted in Carl Jung's understanding of the psyche's yearning for authenticity and depth. This woman has journeyed through the labyrinth of her unconscious and emerged with a clear-eyed vision of what nourishes her soul versus what depletes it. She no longer entertains connections that skim the surface, conversations that circle endlessly without substance, or relationships that demand she diminish parts of herself to fit a fragile mold of acceptance. Instead, she seeks bonds that resonate with the fullness of her experience, relationships that invite vulnerability, challenge growth, and reflect the multifaceted nature of her psyche, including light and shadow, strength and fragility, joy and sorrow. Jung's teachings remind us that the psyche is composed of layers and archetypes that demand acknowledgement. Her intolerance for superficiality is a call to honor these depths rather than dilute them for comfort or convenience. In rejecting the superficial, she protects her energy and preserves her sacred inner space, choosing quality over quantity and authenticity over performative connection. This habit is not born of elitism or disdain, but from profound self-respect and an understanding that meaningful connection requires courage, presence, and mutual commitment to truth. She intuitively senses when interactions lack the gravity to hold her, when words are spoken without meaning, or when attention is distracted and divided. Such encounters leave her feeling fragmented or unseen, a reminder of the collective tendency to avoid discomfort and depth. By refusing to engage with superficiality, she creates a boundary that demands reverence for the self and for others, encouraging those around her to meet her at the level of honest engagement or respectfully step away. This habit sharpens her discernment, teaching her to listen beyond words, to feel beneath gestures, and to seek the unspoken undercurrents of connection that reveal true alignment or divergence. It is a practice that nurtures her emotional and spiritual well-being, allowing her to flourish in spaces where she is fully known and accepted, not merely tolerated or admired from a distance. In a world obsessed with appearances, distractions, and the rapid consumption of experiences, her rejection of superficiality stands as a quiet rebellion and a beacon for those craving depth and meaning. She embodies Jung's vision of individuation as a call to embrace the totality of the self and to seek relationships that reflect that wholeness rather than fragment it. Her presence challenges the status quo that values surface charm over genuine connection, patience over instant gratification, and authenticity over pretense. This habit infuses her life with richness and texture, allowing her to cultivate friendships, partnerships, and communities that elevate rather than diminish her. It makes her magnetic to those who are also seeking depth and exhausting to those who prefer ease and emptiness. Through this habit, she lives as a testament to the power of presence and the necessity of honoring the soul's desire for meaningful interaction. Rejecting superficiality is both an act of self-preservation and an invitation to others to rise into greater awareness and connection. It is a reflection of her ongoing commitment to self-honesty and growth, ensuring that every relationship she nurtures aligns with the sacred truth of who she is becoming. In this way, the habit of rejecting superficiality becomes a cornerstone of her respectability and strength, a living expression of Jung's timeless teaching that the path to wholeness demands depth in every encounter, and that true connection is the meeting of whole souls, not fragmented selves. The habit of aligning actions with core values stands as a pillar of her integrity, a conscious commitment to live in harmony with the deepest truths that Carl Jung described as the guiding principles of individuation and authentic selfhood. This woman understands that values are not abstract ideals to be admired from a distance, but living forces that shape every decision, every interaction, and every step on her path. She has journeyed inward to discover the moral compass that orients her through life's complexities, a compass forged in the crucible of self-reflection, shadow work, and intimate dialogue with her unconscious. Her choices are not reactive or swayed by external pressures, but arise from this internal alignment, giving her an unshakable foundation that others intuitively sense as trustworthy and grounded. In acting in accordance with her core values, she embodies Jung's vision of the self as a coherent whole, where conscious intentions and unconscious drives converge in a unified expression of being. This habit demands courage, for living authentically often requires standing against the tides of societal expectation, peer influence, or fleeting trends that tempt compromise. Yet her unwavering commitment to her values shields her from the fragmentation that comes with inconsistency and moral ambiguity, allowing her to move through the world with clarity and confidence. Her integrity becomes a beacon, attracting those who seek genuine connection and inspiring trust in her character and judgment. This alignment creates harmony between who she is and how she lives, reducing inner conflict and fostering peace within, which then radiates outward to influence her relationships and environments positively. She understands that each action is a reflection of the sacred contract she holds with herself, a promise to honor her essence rather than sacrifice it for convenience or approval. In this way, her life becomes a living testimony to the power of conscious choice, illustrating Jung's belief that the path to wholeness is walked one deliberate step at a time. This habit is not rigid dogmatism, but a flexible, evolving dialogue with her evolving self, allowing her values to deepen and expand as she grows while remaining anchored in the fundamental truths of her being. It cultivates resilience, for when challenges arise or temptations beckon, she returns to this inner compass to guide her decisions and maintain her course. This groundedness nurtures humility and openness as she recognizes that values are lived experiences rather than static rules, inviting continual reflection and adjustment. Her presence embodies the harmony of intention and action, a quiet but powerful force that commands respect not through assertion but through consistent demonstration of character. In a world often fractured by contradiction and inconsistency, her alignment offers a rare and refreshing clarity, making her a steady source of reliability and wisdom. This habit enriches every facet of her life, from intimate relationships to professional endeavors, creating a ripple effect that elevates those around her. By embodying her core values, she invites others to confront their own truths and encourages a culture of authenticity and accountability. It is through this alignment that she not only honors her own journey but contributes meaningfully to the collective evolution, reflecting Jung's insight that personal wholeness is inseparable from communal well-being. Her life becomes a testament to the transformative power of living in truth, where each choice is a sacred act that reaffirms her commitment to the self she is becoming and the world she wishes to help create. The habit of accepting imperfection is a profound embrace of the very humanity that Carl Jung insisted is essential for true individuation and wholeness, a recognition that to be complete is not to be flawless but to hold the full spectrum of one's existence with compassion and courage. This woman has traversed the arduous journey of self-discovery and emerged not as an idealized image but as a complex, beautifully flawed being who no longer wages war against her limits or judges her vulnerabilities as failures. Instead, she welcomes them as integral threads woven into the fabric of her authentic self, understanding that denial or repression of imperfection only breeds fragmentation and inner conflict. Her acceptance creates a paradoxical strength, for by acknowledging her weaknesses, she disarms their power to undermine her, transforming them into sources of wisdom and resilience. This openness makes her deeply relatable, inviting others to see themselves reflected in her honesty and to shed the masks of perfectionism that so often isolate and diminish. Jung taught that shadow integration involves embracing those parts of ourselves we might otherwise reject, and in this habit, she practices that integration daily, dissolving shame and cultivating radical self-love. Her willingness to stand before the world with imperfections intact radiates a quiet confidence that transcends superficial judgments and invites genuine connection. It frees her from the exhausting pursuit of impossible standards imposed by culture or inner critic, allowing her to focus instead on growth, healing, and authentic expression. This habit fosters humility, for she recognizes that imperfection is a universal human condition, and grace, for she forgives herself and others when inevitable mistakes arise. It nurtures patience as she moves through life with an understanding that transformation is a process rather than an event, marked by setbacks and breakthroughs alike. By accepting imperfection, she also models a healthier, more compassionate relationship with failure, viewing it not as a verdict on her worth but as an essential step on the path toward greater self-awareness. Her presence becomes a refuge for those weary of pretense, offering an unspoken invitation to embrace the messy, beautiful reality of being human. This habit dismantles the illusion that strength lies in invulnerability and replaces it with the truth that resilience flourishes in vulnerability. It deepens her connections as others sense her authenticity and feel safe to reveal their own struggles without fear of judgment. In a society often obsessed with perfection and image, her acceptance of imperfection is a radical act of rebellion and liberation, challenging destructive ideals and expanding the space for genuine belonging. This habit strengthens her ability to set and uphold high standards not by demanding flawlessness but by honoring the full complexity of herself and others. It allows her to move through life with grace, wisdom, and an open heart, embracing the dance of light and shadow within. Through accepting imperfection, she embodies Jung's timeless truth that wholeness arises not from erasing flaws but from integrating them into a rich, dynamic, and evolving self. Her journey is a testament to the power of compassion for oneself and for others, and a living example of how embracing our humanity in all its facets creates a foundation for authentic strength, connection, and peace. The habit of listening to intuition is a sacred practice that connects a woman deeply to the wellspring of wisdom residing within her unconscious, a voice that Carl Jung identified as the guiding force of the self beyond the confines of rational thought and external influence. This inner voice is not a whisper of fleeting fancy, but a profound source of insight that transcends logic, tapping into archetypal truths and the collective unconscious that shape her unique path. She honors this intuitive guidance by cultivating silence and receptivity, creating sacred space away from the clamor of modern life where the mind's chatter can subside and the deeper knowing can emerge with clarity. In listening to intuition, she embraces a dialogue with the symbols, feelings, and subtle nudges that arise spontaneously, trusting that these messages carry essential truths about her authentic needs, desires, and direction. This habit requires a surrender to uncertainty and a willingness to move beyond the comfort of purely analytical decision-making, acknowledging that not all answers come from conscious reasoning, but often from the mysterious depths where time and logic dissolve. Her reliance on intuition imbues her choices with a sense of alignment and flow, allowing her to navigate complexities with grace and confidence that stems from a holistic understanding of herself and her environment. Jung taught that the integration of intuition is vital for individuation, as it balances the intellect with deeper, often unconscious knowledge, fostering wholeness and authenticity. This habit nurtures patience and openness, for she learns to discern between impulsive reactions and the steady guidance of true intuitive wisdom, sharpening her ability to act from a place of grounded insight rather than fleeting emotion. By trusting her intuition, she also cultivates resilience against external pressures and societal expectations that might otherwise lead her astray, anchoring her firmly in the truth of her own experience. This connection to the inner voice enhances her creativity, problem-solving, and emotional intelligence, making her presence both magnetic and mysterious to those around her. It invites others to recognize the value of their own intuition and to honor the unseen currents that shape life's unfolding. In a culture that often prioritizes rationality and measurable outcomes, her habit of listening to intuition stands as a radical reclaiming of the wisdom embedded in the unconscious, a celebration of the soul's guidance that defies quantification. Through this practice, she exemplifies Jung's vision of the psyche as a living system where consciousness and unconsciousness dance in dynamic balance, each informing and enriching the other. Her choices become acts of alignment with a deeper order, reflecting a trust that life unfolds according to a meaningful design beyond immediate perception. This habit transforms decision-making from a source of anxiety into a sacred art, where intuition and reason collaborate to illuminate the path forward. Her respect and confidence grow because she acts not merely from external validation or intellectual analysis, but from a place of profound inner knowing. Listening to intuition becomes a source of empowerment and liberation, allowing her to move through the world with authenticity and grace, honoring the complexity of her being and the mysterious forces that shape her destiny. This habit deepens her connection to herself and the larger rhythms of life, nurturing a sense of peace and purpose that radiates in every aspect of her existence. It is a testament to the power of the unseen, the unspoken, and the intuitive, reminding us that the most profound guidance often arises from the depths within, inviting us to trust the voice that knows even when the mind cannot yet understand. The habit of resisting people-pleasing is a profound assertion of self-sovereignty, a refusal to sacrifice her needs, desires, and authentic voice in the pursuit of approval that Carl Jung identified as a necessary step in the journey of individuation, where the psyche must disentangle itself from the collective expectations that seek to mold and diminish the unique self. This woman understands that the compulsion to please others is often rooted in the shadow's fears of rejection, abandonment, and invisibility, shadows she has courageously faced and integrated through deep inner work. She no longer confuses her worth with the fluctuating opinions of those around her, or bends herself into shapes designed to comfort or placate, recognizing instead that true belonging arises from the acceptance of her whole being, not the sacrifice of it. This habit requires a steady cultivation of boundaries, discernment, and self-respect, allowing her to say no without guilt and to honor her own rhythms and priorities even when they conflict with social or relational demands. By resisting the urge to people-please, she embodies Jung's vision of the self as a differentiated center that must emerge distinct from the collective psyche in order to flourish and find authentic expression. Her liberation from the need for external validation frees her to engage with others from a place of genuine connection rather than compliance or fear, fostering relationships based on mutual respect and truth. This shift transforms her interactions and opens space for deeper intimacy as she invites others to meet her as she truly is rather than as a shadow of their expectations. It also nurtures a resilience that allows her to withstand criticism, disappointment, or rejection without fracturing, for her sense of self is grounded in internal coherence rather than external approval. She learns to recognize when the desire to please is a veiled form of self-neglect and chooses instead to nurture her own well-being with compassion and firmness. This habit is a radical departure from the conditioned scripts that equate worth with pleasing and sacrifice, challenging cultural narratives that demand women, especially, to prioritize others' comfort above their own authenticity. By stepping away from people-pleasing, she reclaims the energy and focus needed to pursue her purpose and embody her truth fully. Her presence becomes a living testimony to the power of individuation, demonstrating that separation from collective expectations is not isolation, but liberation, a necessary unfolding that allows the unique self to shine. This habit also deepens her empathy, as having navigated the complexities of approval and rejection, she offers others the grace to explore their own paths without judgment. Her refusal to diminish herself to appease others makes her a beacon for those seeking freedom from the invisible chains of conformity and conditional love. It invites a collective awakening, reminding us that authentic connection flourishes only when each person stands firmly in their truth. Through resisting people-pleasing, she embodies Jung's timeless teaching that wholeness requires the courage to be oneself amid the pressures to conform, a journey that transforms not only the individual but the fabric of relationships and communities. Her choice to honor her needs without apology ripples outward, inspiring others to reclaim their voices and embrace the power of their unique existence. This habit is the foundation of her integrity, the wellspring of her strength, and the quiet revolution that shapes the contours of her life with clarity and purpose. The habit of owning her power quietly is a profound embodiment of Carl Jung's vision of the self as a force of integration and authentic authority that radiates not through loud declarations or displays of dominance but through a steady, grounded presence that commands respect by simply being. This woman has journeyed through the depths of her unconscious, faced the shadows that once fragmented her, and emerged whole, carrying within her a power that is measured not by volume but by depth and substance. Her influence flows from the calm confidence that arises when one no longer needs to prove worth or assert control to be seen or heard. Instead, she wields power with the subtlety of a river carving stone, persistent yet gentle, shaping her environment through clarity, intention, and unwavering self-possession. This quiet authority is a testament to Jung's teaching that true power is the harmony of conscious awareness and unconscious wisdom, where ego and self collaborate in service of wholeness rather than separation. She leads not by coercion but by example, inviting others into alignment with shared values and collective growth through her integrity and authenticity. Her presence is magnetic precisely because it is free from the insecurity and agitation that often accompany overt displays of power, allowing her to navigate complex social dynamics with grace and ease. This habit reflects a deep trust in the unfolding of life and in her ability to respond to challenges with equanimity and wisdom rather than force. In a culture that often equates power with aggression or dominance, her quiet command disrupts expectations and offers a transformative model of leadership grounded in self-mastery and compassion. She understands that influence is not a commodity to be seized, but a resonance to be cultivated, arising naturally when one acts from alignment with the self's highest principles. Her ability to hold space for others without overshadowing them fosters environments where creativity, collaboration, and authenticity thrive, making her a catalyst for collective individuation and healing. This habit nurtures patience, as she recognizes that lasting change unfolds over time and through sustained presence rather than immediate imposition. It also cultivates humility, for she knows that power divorced from responsibility fractures and diminishes, whereas power grounded in awareness sustains and expands. Her leadership style embodies the Jungian archetype of the wise woman, who guides through insight and steady compassion rather than coercion or spectacle. By owning her power quietly, she resists the temptation to perform or dominate, choosing instead to cultivate an inner authority that radiates strength and serenity. This habit empowers her to set and uphold high standards with confidence and clarity, influencing others not through fear or obligation but through respect and admiration. Her power is a living reflection of her integrated self, a force that moves softly yet decisively, shaping her world with intention and grace. It invites others to step into their own power, creating ripples of transformation that extend beyond her immediate sphere. Through this quiet ownership, she enacts a revolution of presence, reminding us that the most profound leadership is not loud or forceful, but calm, consistent, and deeply rooted in the truth of who we are. This habit is a testament to the strength found in vulnerability embraced and to the wisdom born from a lifetime of inner work. It is the embodiment of Jung's timeless truth that the path to wholeness and authentic influence is walked with humility, patience, and unwavering faith in the self's capacity to shape reality through being rather than doing. The habit of inspiring others by example is a profound manifestation of Carl Jung's understanding of the self as a living archetype, where a woman's consistent embodiment of self-respect and authenticity becomes a silent beacon that calls forth transformation in those around her without the need for words or deliberate persuasion. Her life is a tapestry woven with threads of integrity, courage, and unwavering commitment to her values, each choice and action radiating a subtle yet powerful invitation for others to reflect on their own paths and consider raising their standards. This inspiration is not born from intention or ego, but flows naturally from her alignment with the deeper currents of her unconscious wisdom, which Jung described as the guiding force of individuation and true leadership. By living fully as herself, embracing both her light and shadow with equal grace, she becomes a mirror in which others begin to see their own potential for wholeness and strength. Her presence disrupts complacency and challenges the status quo, embodying a quiet revolution that nurtures growth and awakening in ways that are often invisible but deeply felt. This habit fosters a community of seekers drawn to the authenticity she models, creating ripples that extend beyond immediate relationships to influence broader cultural narratives about worth, power, and connection. She does not instruct or admonish, but simply embodies a standard of self-love and resilience that others cannot help but notice and admire. Her example cultivates hope and possibility, demonstrating that living with integrity and respect for oneself is not only achievable but deeply fulfilling. Jung taught that archetypes operate through symbolic presence rather than explicit communication, and in this way, her consistent self-respect serves as a living symbol of what is possible when one embraces the journey of individuation with honesty and courage. This habit invites others to question the patterns and limitations they have inherited and to consider the freedom that arises from self-honoring choices. It creates a sacred space where vulnerability is met with acceptance and where growth is nurtured through shared example rather than judgment or demand. Her influence is subtle yet undeniable, a magnetic force that encourages others to step into their own power and authenticity with confidence and grace. By inspiring through example, she embodies a leadership that is inclusive, compassionate, and transformative, reflecting Jung's vision of the self as a source of healing and evolution for the collective. This habit deepens her own journey, as each act of self-respect reinforces her commitment to wholeness and invites continual reflection and growth. It strengthens her resilience, knowing that her path serves not only herself but also as a catalyst for the awakening of others. Her life becomes a testament to the enduring power of authenticity, the quiet revolution of presence, and the profound impact of living in alignment with one's deepest truths. Through this habit, she participates in the unfolding of a larger story, one of collective individuation, where each person's journey toward wholeness enriches the fabric of human connection and cultural evolution. Her example is a sacred gift, a reminder that change begins within and that the most powerful inspiration arises not from words but from the steadfast courage to be oneself, fully and unapologetically in every moment. The respect she commands in the outer world is not a superficial accolade but a profound reflection of the inner journey she has undertaken, a journey that Carl Jung described as the path of individuation, where wholeness and authenticity become the very foundation of true power and presence. Each habit she cultivates, from knowing and owning her shadow to embracing solitude, from aligning actions with core values to resisting the urge to please others, weaves together a tapestry of self-integration that radiates outward in every gesture, word, and choice. Her external respect is not won through dominance, manipulation, or performance, but arises organically from the deep alignment between her conscious intentions and the often mysterious workings of her unconscious. Jung taught that the psyche is a dynamic whole, and when the parts are in harmony, a magnetic force emerges, drawing others not through coercion, but through the undeniable authenticity of being fully oneself. This woman's presence is a living testament to that truth, embodying a calm confidence that neither demands nor begs, but simply is. Her respect commands itself because it is rooted in a foundation that has been tempered by the fires of shadow work, self-reflection, and courageous boundary setting. It is a respect that mirrors her commitment to living in truth, honoring imperfection, and listening deeply to the intuitive wisdom that guides her path. Through this inner alignment, she becomes a beacon for others, inviting reflection and awakening without the need for explicit instruction or assertion. Her journey is not a destination but an ongoing dance of integration where growth, humility, and resilience flow in balance. The habits she embodies are not isolated virtues, but interconnected aspects of a singular process of becoming whole, where each choice reverberates through her being and the world she touches. In a culture often obsessed with surface appearances and external validation, her respect is a radical departure, a quiet revolution that calls us back to the sacredness of the inner life and the power it holds to transform our relationships and communities. Jung's psychology teaches that true respect arises when we face ourselves honestly and embrace all facets of our being, allowing authenticity to become the guiding principle of our existence. This woman's life is a mirror reflecting that profound reality. The external respect she receives is but a shadow of the inner harmony she has cultivated through dedication and love for herself. Her story reminds us that respect cannot be given or taken by force, but emerges naturally when we align with the totality of who we are, embracing light and shadow, strength and vulnerability with equal grace. It is a testament to the power of self-acceptance and the courage to live authentically amidst a world that often pressures conformity. Her presence teaches that wholeness is not a static achievement, but a living, evolving process that invites continual learning and deepening connection with the self. The respect she commands invites us all to embark on our own journeys toward integration, authenticity, and self-love, knowing that in honoring our inner truths, we create a ripple effect that elevates not only ourselves but the collective whole. In this way, her life stands as both inspiration and challenge, a call to live with courage, clarity, and compassion, trusting that the deepest respect we can ever know begins within and radiates outward in every aspect of our being and becoming.